Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 486. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed children's book author and podcaster, Leo Finelli.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
You just recently came out with a book called The Nutcracker's World, which came out on October 14th, 2025.
Yes.
And so for folks meeting you for the first time, how do you introduce yourself as a creator?
Well, I would probably say that I'm a writer, a children's book author, a podcast host, and a multifaceted creative working at the intersection of creativity and social change.
So talk about, too, because we're talking about right here, right during Christmas, we're in Christmas time during this, is like, so what was the origin story of Nutcracker's World, and when did this idea first take root?
Actually, it took root 15 years ago when I was 9 years old. So in 2010, which was the first year that my family and I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we still live, my sister was playing a mouse in a local ballet school's amateur production of the Nutcracker, the ballet. And I remember one night, she and my mom were on YouTube watching videos of the battle scene with the mice from different productions of the Nutcracker. And I was watching with them. And as I did, I realized that no two productions of the Nutcracker were exactly alike. And that got me thinking about what I would do if I could create my own version. And I guess I just haven't stopped thinking about that ever since.
Huh. And so what did you want to keep sacred from the classic telling of it? And what did you feel that was open for reinvention then?
I kept the basic structure of the story. We still have all the familiar characters. We have Clara. We have Clara, who's the little girl and the main character. We have Dr. Drosselmeyer, who is the magician who brings the Nutcracker to the Christmas party as a gift. We have the Sugar Plum Fairy. We have the Mouse King. We have a lot of the traditional elements of the story, but the big difference in my version, because there really is one central difference, is that unlike the classic version, in my book, I include other winter holidays besides Christmas. I mention Hanukkah, I mention Kwanzaa, I mention the Winter Solstice, I mention Lunar New Year, and I integrated all of those holidays into the story in multiple meaningful ways, and I kind of use the Nutcracker story as a way of teaching kids about the winter holiday traditions of different religions and cultures. This gives the story an educational element and a pro-inclusion message that the classic version doesn't really have. And that's also why I changed the title to The Nutcracker's World, because, like multicultural. And there are some other changes that I made too, but that's the big one.
Now, if a family already loves the traditional Nutcracker, what will surprise them about your version?
Well, I think they're going to be surprised from the get-go, because when they start reading the story and they see the first illustration, they're probably going to notice straight away that there's a menorah on the windowsill. They probably weren't expecting to see that, and that's probably going to be the first sign that this is going to be different. And I also think they'll be surprised by a lot of the new characters that I've added to the story, like when Clara visits the Sugar Plum Fairy's palace, when the Nutcracker takes her there, she meets all sorts of characters there who aren't in the traditional Nutcracker, like the dancing dreidels and the Kwanzaa Unity Cup and the fresh fruits of Kwanzaa.
So how do you balance celebration with clarity so kids don't feel overwhelmed?
I don't lecture them, really, about the different holidays. I naturally integrate them into the story. Because if you've ever seen the traditional Nutcracker, you know that in the second act, the Sugar Plum Fairy sits Clara and the Nutcracker down on the little chairs while they watch everybody who lives at her palace dance for them one by one. And the idea I had was one dance for each winter holiday from a different religion or culture, so that as Clara's watching all the dances, she's seeing the symbols of the different winter holidays and learning about them.
What do you hope adults take away from this book when they read it out loud?
I hope that they take away both our differences and our similarities are worth celebrating, that all of these holidays are beautifully unique, but they also have some common themes across all of them. And I think it's a story that will spark curiosity and adventure, foster a love of multicultural and diverse learning for children.
What do you love most about Clara as a character in your version?
I think what I like most about Clara as a character in my version is how different she is from Clara in any other version. So typically, Clara is portrayed as a sweet, innocent, dreamy, and passive girl. But in my version, she's energetic and curious and adventurous.
And so, because your story has wonder, but also bravery, what did you want Clara to model for young readers?
I wanted her to model emotional resilience, curiosity, bravery, love of adventure, open-mindedness, and just being ever conscious of the fact that there's a whole world of people around you and you're just one person in that world, and knowing that you're not the center of the universe and forever being interested in discovering the people and the world around you, because curiosity creates empathy. I've experienced that myself, and Clara's curiosity makes her empathetic.
So I love how your book is also like a photo-collage illustration. So what made you decide to do a photo-collage?
Well, when I was little, I loved looking at books with photos of real people and real kids in them, and I decided to do that for this book because I wanted to create the book that I would have loved to read as a child.
And what was the most fun scene that you created visually?
I'd have to say the most fun scene was probably just everything in the second part of the story in the Sugar Plum Palace, because absolutely zero AI was used in the making of this book. There's a lot of fancy photo editing and computer magic in the book, but none of it was done with AI. That Sugar Plum Palace you see in the book, that's not an AI generated background. I designed that entirely by myself and combined different elements on my software to make it and put it together and create this fantastical digital environment from which I pulled images from many different places to be in. And I love the photo collage illustrations that I made. I also loved getting to directly work with my models and photograph them and direct them. of course, some of the photos in the book are in like an actual living room and the people are actually there. But other times, what I was actually doing was photographing them in front of a blank wall, then cutting the wall out and digitally inserting them into these other backgrounds. So a lot of suspension of disbelief had to be done on the part of the people posing for the photos. They just had to trust that I was going to do something with them that would look good in the digital backgrounds that I created. And I think I did. And from what I've heard, I've gotten a lot of praise from the people whom I worked with on how I made it look.
Right. And because you also acted as Dr. Drosselmeyer in the illustrations. So
yes, I am Dr. Drosselmeyer.
Huh. So what was that experience like?
First of all, I absolutely loved getting to not just be an author or an illustrator, but to be a character in the story. And I loved being this character because when I was younger and I was seeing the Nutcracker, I was always fascinated by that particular character. He's a creative artist and he comes off as kind of weird, socially awkward. And I'm a creative artist too, and I know that I can present a little awkwardly sometimes because of my autism, but I'm only trying to connect with the people and the world around me. To me, Dr. Drosselmeyer is autistic, and that's why I absolutely loved playing him.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. So what kind of prep goes into a shoot for a children's book, like costumes, lighting, poses, and all of that?
Well, the most elaborate one I did was all the ones with Clara and the living room. So I had already... that's a family who lives on my street. They live down on the corner. And we had arranged for me to come down to the house on December 14th, 2024, last year. It was a Saturday. And I was going to go down there in the late afternoon and evening. And we were going to do all the pictures. And I had bought this little pink nightgown with little white stars on it for the little girl to wear as Clara. And the Nutcracker's costume and the Sugar Plum Fairy's costume and the Sugar Plum Fairy Cavalier's costume, all of those were stuff that I bought on eBay specifically for them to wear. So I had to buy all the costume elements. I had to figure out dates and times to come down to the photos. But actually setting up for the photo shoots in wherever we were doing them was actually the easy part because I was just either photographing the people in front of a wall and I was going to edit them in front of a background later, or I was going to just photograph them in their regular living room with like props and scenery that was like already set up because it was that time of year anyway, although some of the stuff you see in the party scene, like the menorah and the red lantern and the fruit bowl, those were stuff I brought, not stuff that they already had there. So it was a wonderful combination of serendipity and some great costumes and props that I was able to find.
Mm. You mentioned reaching out to cultural experts for feedback. What did that process kind of teach you?
So I was aware of this organization called MECMIN, the Mecklenburg Metropolitan Interfaith Network, and I knew about them, and so I decided to reach out to the executive director and ask her if she could find me one person to review my descriptions and portrayals of each of the 5 winter holidays that I discussed in the story, and let me know if they were culturally accurate and how I could make them more accurate and sensitive. And I'm so glad that I did that, because their feedback really helped me make it more accurate and sensitive. For example, in the first draft of the book that I shared with the Mech-Min people, the book says that Clara's mother lit the menorah. But one of the cultural experts that Mech-Min passed the book along to was a Jewish cantor, and he told me something I didn't know, that the menorah is considered to be a deeply sacred religious object, and most Jewish people feel that it should only be lit by Jewish people. And so I took the mention of Clara's mom lighting the menorah out because of that feedback. So I definitely appreciate the help that these cultural experts were able to give me.
You host, let's talk a little bit about your podcast too. You host Generation Change. How does that world conversation and connection influence your storytelling?
Well, Generation Change is a podcast where I interview Gen Z advocates, artists, creatives, and change makers of all kinds. I do a new episode every month, and this podcast has given me the opportunity to meet people from all different racial backgrounds, LGBTQ people, other people with different disabilities. It's a very diverse body of guests. I love meeting new people. I love meeting different kinds of people. And I feel like this directly connects to the Nutcracker's world as a story of connecting with the world around you and exploring different perspectives.
What do you hope becomes a family tradition around this book?
I hope families who celebrate all the different holidays mentioned in the book can embrace this book as part of their traditions, whatever those are, and see other families with other traditions, including the same book as part of their celebrations. I also really hope that the book gets used in schools, because I know that schools are always looking for ways to teach about the different winter holidays to kids and give them all equal airtime in their school lessons. And I think this book would be an incredible book to teach K-2 students about the different winter holidays, because like I said, it's not a nonfiction book. It doesn't lecture them about the holidays. It naturally integrates them into a story. It's edutainment.
So what are you excited to create next? Another classic reimagining or something totally original now?
Actually, my next project up is a very interesting one. I don't know how long it'll be before I get started on it, but this is another chapter book, more like my first book than like the Nutcracker's World. And this chapter book that I'm planning on doing next is about a second grade teacher who's getting ready to have her first child and how she involves her students in helping her get ready for her baby.
So, Leo, if people want to learn more about you and your work, where is the best place they could go to?
Well, they can go to leofinelli.com, or they can follow me on Instagram at GenChange with LF. That's GenChangewithlf.
Okay, perfect. And so listen, Leo, when you work on your next book, come back on. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I loved being here.
All right.